My name is Jason Francois. I'm an area applications engineer for the Central United States. I handle Illinois. Where do I handle? Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota, as well as the Dakotas. With me are Sam Lawrence and Angela Brown. Sam, would you introduce yourself?
I'm Sam Lorenz. I'm also an applications engineer, and I cover the Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri area. So, yeah.
And to round that out, I'm Angela. I'm a solutions architect for the US and Canada distribution team here at Q-SYS.
All
And
right, we are up to 30, so I'm going to be handling the talking head portion, and I've enlisted Angela and Sam to help with any kind of questions that we have that come up during the webinar. I will be pausing every now and again to address those questions, but feel free to just put them right in the questions section of of the chat. And we'll get going here in about 30 odd seconds, maybe a little quicker than that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Well, welcome again. Again, my name is Jason Francois, Area Applications Engineer for the Central United States. I handle the Northern Territories, so to speak. Welcome to Deep Dives. Today's session is going to be planning clocking domains for Q-LAN, Dante, and AES67. The most important one and the one that rules them all is Q-LAN. So when we're talking about clocking, think of it like you're the conductor of an orchestra, and you're making sure that the entire orchestra is following the same beat. All the swells and all the pianissimo sections, I really screwed up that word, all follow the same flow of that conductor. But everybody's got to follow that same clock. There's a couple different clocks that your computer just naturally adheres to as part of being on the internet, as part of being on a network, whether that be network time protocol. But the one that we're going to talk about today, or the two we're going to talk about today, are precision time protocol. I'm a little mushmouth this morning. Sorry about that. We've got two different iterations of PTP, precision time protocol. We've got 1588-2002, and we've got 1588-2008. The last four digits of those represent the year in which the IEEE standard was originated or finalized for those two different protocols. So precision time protocol takes that idea of having a conductor and gets the accuracy down to the nanosecond, down to the microsecond, so that there is everybody's following the same clock as far as digital audio is concerned. So the master clock sends out that beat, says, okay, everybody's going to follow this, and all of the secondary clocks then respond, say, yep, we're all on board. And how that works is a couple things. We need a multicast network, specifically for PTP V1 and V2. We need to have that multicast network. And what we're going to do is we're going to elect a clock leader. And we're going to elect a clock leader through what's called the best master clock algorithm. And so all these devices that are on your network, if we don't do any pre-configuring, they will all look at each other and say, I'm a Dante device, I'm an AES67 device, I'm a Q-LAN device. We all need digital audio, and so we all need a clock to follow. So they'll announce themselves on the network. And once they announce themselves on the network, a clock leader will be elected. And once that clock leader is elected, they're going to send out a sync and a multicast signal. So the sync signal is just kind of the heartbeat, and it says, I'm out there, I'm announcing myself, I'm the clock leader, and here's the time that you're going to follow. Here's the clock that you're going to follow. Then that signal is received by one of the peripherals, one of the secondary or clock followers, and that then responds with, yep, I'm following your time. Here's how long that message took to get to me. Here's how long I'm going to push a message, and now we're going to evaluate how long that message is going to make its round trip. So you've got the clock master sending out what everything else is going to follow. So again, much like the conductor of an orchestra. There's two variations of PTP, like I said, there's V1 and V2. So V1 is the older standard. So think of your older Dante devices that are running on the old Ultimo X chipset or the Brooklyn One chipset. any device that cannot operate in AES67 mode will run on those two chipsets and will be a PTP v1 device. PTP v2 devices, now that's your AES67. That's your Q-LAN devices. Those are all devices that can adhere to this higher standard of precision that PTP v2 allows. So because we've got that high level of precision, because we've got all that data just going across the network, we need a way to maintain that message's integrity. And so what we utilize for that is quality of service. So if you've done any kind of setup of Dante or Q-LAN or Audinate signals before on a network switch, you've seen, okay, I need to have these DSCP values for my quality of service in this specific order. And what that is doing is saying, all right, my timing needs to be of the utmost importance. And now maybe my digital audio, and now maybe my digital video. And what is the last one? The last one could be maybe your UDP broadcast going back and forth between devices. But really, that quality of service ensures that the time is the most important and highest regarded element of that packet. Excuse me. PTP v1 and v2 are not backwards compatible. So PTP v1 devices, those older Dante devices, do not speak or follow the same clock as PTP v2. So we're going to get into it a little bit as we explain that they need an intermediary there. They need a boundary clock to repeat or translate that PTP v2 clock. I talk a lot with my hands, sorry. PTP v2 clock into PTP version 1. Excuse me. So in order to kind of explain this, we're going to go over some clocking scenarios. Each one of these clocking scenarios are going to start the same way. So there's going to be a lot of redundancy that we're going through, but that repetition is hopefully going to assist in, just really getting this to sink in, getting this message to really power through. So our standalone scenario first, I've got two cores. These two cores are existing completely separate from one another. There's no network audio going between them. They are on their own separated networks for each room. They don't even have any digital audio associated with them. It's a core doing its thing. All the audio that's going in and out of it is going off the analog I/O, and any network connection is just used for control.
Hey,
There's two
Jason,
yes,
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick. At the top of
sure.
your screen, it looks like the bar is over the presentation. Is there any way to hide that thing?
I am looking at it here. Hang on one sec. Looks like the bar is over the presentation. I'm gonna take a look. Let's look at my share.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but I don't want to
No,
miss.
no worries. And you know what? I'm gonna see if I can move that over a little bit. Makes there we go. There we go. And let's see if it goes away after a second here. Because that's just the little share
Yeah, that's
bar
the
over the top.
Zoom. Yeah, that's the Zoom bar, I think, right?
Yeah. Is it still prevalent, still there? Because the
It's
only thing I see is the stop share.
it's there, but it's a lot smaller, so I think we could probably work with that. And sorry to interrupt you. We can now get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Jeez, Angela,
I
crying out
know, the
loud.
worst. Why would you ever
So,
want me here?
so again, these standalone cores, they exist, as the name implies, completely on their own. They've got different files running. They are not connected over the network at all. So do we have to do anything for their clocking? No. We don't have to configure anything on these guys because we are not sharing digital audio between the cores. We're not pushing digital audio onto the network. We're not receiving digital audio off the network. If they're going to just live and reside on their own, we need to do nothing. Zip, zilch, zero. Now we've got a couple Q-LAN peripherals. We're taking those same rooms that we're going to be using maybe a Core 110 or a Core 24F, and we're going to add some QIO peripherals. Again, these are completely separated networks. But because we are now adding that digital audio component, Our devices have a couple network connections to them. I'm going to rewind a little bit. If you're familiar with Q-SYS cores have two NICs on them typically. You've got a LAN A and a LAN B. The way I like to think about it is LAN A, always audio, LAN B, everything but audio. So in this instance, we have separate networks for our audio on LAN A, but maybe we've got an uplink to the internet for Q-SYS Reflect monitoring or connection to a MTR device or something like that. So we do have a network connection to the outside world, and because we have that network connection to the outside world, our cores see each other. When we've got two rooms with a core, on LAN A, we've got all our audio peripherals, but LAN B, we're looking at the outside world. Those cores can now see each other. And they say, okay, I need to transmit digital audio because I've got a QIO device attached to me. Each one of those cores is going to be attached to that QIO device over LAN A. However, they're still going to need to follow a master clock because they've got that digital audio component. If these cores were completely separate and they weren't connected even up to the internet over the same, public, or corporate network switch, things like that, then we wouldn't need to do this. But because we do have that uplink, now the cores see each other and they both know that they're transmitting digital audio. So if we just leave the cores do what they want, I saw the other message come back down. If we just leave the cores do what they want, they're going to go through their best master clock algorithm to determine that clock leader. And so what that's going to do is it's going to say, okay, core 1, core 2, you guys are equal in stature. You don't have any manual setup that's happened so far on the cores. Who's going to be the leader? And so the way it's going to elect that leader, if all devices are equal, is the lowest MAC address on the NIC. So in that case, we're just automatically electing that primary clock leader based on the MAC address. All right, now we're going to add some priority in. Why would we want to add priority? Well, maybe we've got a portable system, or maybe just a system that's not used very often. Maybe there's a theater that's on this network that's with a bunch of classrooms for a university. Well, in that case, when the theater fires up or when that portable system fires up, we don't want that best master clock algorithm to cause any stoppage in our audio. Because every time that best master clock algorithm comes up, that means we might be electing a new leader. And if we elect a new leader, then all the secondary devices will drop off the clock that they're currently following and now attach to the new clock leader. And so we could have a really short drop in audio caused by that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some priority. We're going to say, okay, I need to make sure that this device that's always on, that's not tampered with very often, isn't easy to get to, is a reliable, trusted device. That's going to be my clock leader. And so to make your clock leader the Q-SYS core, we go through a couple steps here. The way that the PTP-v2 best master clock algorithm works is it first looks at your priority 1. So when you open up Q-SYS Designer and you click File, and under Design Properties, you'll see these different drop-down boxes. So the first one it's going to look at it for electing a leader is priority 1. So your PTP priority 1 by default on all Q-SYS devices is set to 254. Cores are the only devices that you can change that. By changing that on a core, it says, yes, I want to have more of a priority and be elected the master clock. And so you'll set this PTP priority to 100 or lower. Typically, most devices will have a default address of 128 or higher. Like I said, Q-SYS devices by default is 254. So by putting this at a value of 100 or lower, it's kind of like golf. The lowest score wins. Next thing is going to look at our class accuracy and variance. We don't have any means of making any changes to those. as it pertains to digital audio, really the next step is priority 2. So if all things are equal and priority 1 and 2 need to be changed to make this guy the master, this is where you would do it. And next would be your MAC address. Again, lowest priority wins, just like golf. The Q-SYS defaults for priority 1 are 254. Priority 2 is 100. Since we're looking at that primary priority first, the only way that only reason we would need to change priority 2 is if we had another device on the network that also had a PTP priority 1, the same as what we would be setting our core. So to make that even muddier, I've got a core. I want it to be the primary clock. I want it to be the clock leader. So I'm going to set that PTP priority to 100. If by chance there's another device on the network that also has that PTP priority 1 of 100, well, then I would need to either go change that other device, make it a higher number, or bring this down to, say, 90, just to ensure that my device is the clock leader. I'm going to take a second here for any kind of questions. Anything coming up in the chat or questions?
I think we've answered the one question we've gotten so far.
Okay, cool. I'm going to keep going then.
Yeah, Roger.
So scenario 3, same rooms. Now we've established some priority. Why we establish that priority again is maybe one of these rooms isn't on all the time. Maybe it's part of a portable system. So we don't want that clock collection to cause any blips in our audio. That'd be really obtrusive to a meeting, a class, if all of a sudden audio dropped out for about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, while a new clock leader was established. So what we're going to do is we're going to set that priority. So in this case, we're going to say, hey, core 2, I want you to be the clock leader. And core 1, maybe that'll be on that portable system. So in order to do that, again, we set that PTP priority 1 to a number of 100 or lower. Lowest score wins. Now, with Q-LAN and AES67, another unique feature of those on PTP version 2 versus PTP version 1 using older Dante is that we can create alternate domains. Now, if you've got an older Dante devices that you need to create alternate domains with, you can by all means do that with Dante Domain Manager. But if you're not running Dante Domain Manager and you just want a quick and dirty way to get things done and make sure that your AES67 and Q-LAN devices do not share any clocking information, we can configure alternate domains. In that same drop-down from your file menu, you can select which PTP v2 domain you would like to adhere to. So the default is 0. The way that that's represented with Dante is just DFLT. But we're not worried about Dante right now. We're just worried about AES67 and Q-LAN, and we want to make sure that my system in room 1 and my system in room 2 are completely separated. They never talk to each other. They're like that weird uncle we all have at Thanksgiving dinner where he just sits at the end of the table and nobody talks to him. So in order to do that, we're going to isolate our uncle by changing his domain to alternate 1. So now this device will only talk to devices in its own domain. It will forward that domain information to all of its Q-LAN peripherals as part of its Q-SYS designer file. So you don't have to worry about making any of those changes on any QIO boxes, CXQs, etc. that might be attached to this device. But what it does is says, I'm going to be separate. I'm going to be on my own. I'm going to be an island. You don't talk to me. I don't talk to you. Everything's good. So again, that's PTP v2 domain is where we can make that change. And what that would look like then is with the default domain of 0, core 1 and that QIO number 1 in room number 1, they just don't see core 2. Now, that also means that if you need to have any audio going between those, that ain't going to happen. So Q-LAN, AES67, Dante, none of that is going to happen. You can still do WAN streaming. You can still do, you know, grab different network streams from RTSP devices and push those RTSP devices out. But Q-LAN, AES67, Dante, not going to happen between these devices. Each core is a separate clocking domain and its own leader. Scenario number 5, now I've got a Dante device in AES67 mode. All right, so we've added to our rooms. We've got our 2 rooms that have a core and a QIO, and we're going to add somewhere into that mix a UND6IO BT, our Bluetooth wall plate, as well as a UNDX4I. Now, there's some really, really important naming right here. We've got that 6IOBT that's AES67 enabled, and we've got a legacy UNDX4I. So we've got different chipsets in those, Ultimo X and Ultimo. When you open these guys up in Dante Controller, you'll see that with the UND6IOBT, you can set that to AES67 mode. That's how you know it's got the newer chip. If you cannot do that, and it only runs in Dante mode, that means it will only respond to PTP version 1. It will not respond to PTP version 2 at all. When you open up Dante Controller, this is a little bit older screenshot of Dante Controller. They have finally put a new skin on it. You can enable that AES67 on the UND6IO. And you'll see that we've got the ability just through a drop-down to enable or disable that feature. Once you do that, a lot of times it's a really good idea to reboot that device as well. All Dante devices are on that default Dante domain. So here it listed as 0, but if you look it up in Dante Controller or Dante Domain Manager, it'll say DFLT. So that means our older device and our newer device can talk to each other, but our older device cannot talk directly to our Q-SYS core. So we need what's called a boundary clock to bridge that precision time protocol version 1 and version 2 domain. So I've done no setup on these. I brought these devices are out of the box, plug them into the rooms, put them on the network, and here's what I get. That best master clock algorithm is going to run because each device is putting out an announce message saying, I've got digital audio, I need digital audio. What do I do with this digital audio? It's digital audio all day long. So that announced message is going to go out, and our Q-LAN devices, our QIOs, our cores, and the AES67 devices are all going to respond, hey, I speak PTPv2. But our older Ultimo chipset UNDX4I, way too many acronyms in our business, that says, hey, I'm over here. I'm kind of, I've got, a little bit slower speed vehicle that I can roll. So I need to talk to the 6IOBT, and the 6IOBT then talks to the rest of the devices. So that 6IOBT's job is the boundary clock. It takes that PTP-v2 clock and says, yep, I talk that, and speaks to the cores so that it can transmit its digital audio back and forth. And then it says, okay, I've got this clock I'm following. Now UNDX4I, you follow me. And so I'm going to act as my Dante clock, and I'm going to act as the boundary clock because we've done no setup. We haven't set any priority on our devices. We're just letting that best master clock algorithm shake out. That one always gets a couple questions, so let me know if I need to stop and answer anything regarding that.
I think we have one question that we're going to get to in a little bit, and I want to make sure that that they're aware that we are going to get to it in a little bit, which is the question Chris Lambert asks. Why would I choose a core to have a higher priority than an installed device with a hardware Dante chip? doesn't the software nature add latency? I've had AT push this and they never have an answer. I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I do think like talking about some of the latencies involved, I think software Dante's latency is what, 2 or 3 milliseconds. It's not much
Right.
on a single switch. And understanding that the Dante chip versus software Dante, there is almost no negligible latency difference that I'm aware of. But if you want to speak a little bit more about that.
Sure, sure. And yeah, and you know what, I will try and cover that in a slide coming up actually, about why you would want to choose one over the other. Um, you know what, I think I'll address that kind of in the next two.
Yeah.
So part of that scenario that we're talking about now is let's select a PTP priority. We want to make sure that our clock is handled by a device that's going to be on the network all the time, on all the time, is robust, is not easily tampered with, um, and does that necessarily have to be a Q-SYS core? It doesn't necessarily have to be a Q-SYS core, but we're giving you the tools to enable the core as the PTP clock leader, because this is a device that's, like I said, typically on all the time, not easy to access. It can't get bumped into or damaged easily just because of where they're typically located. So with this same scenario, now I've got to modify my PTP1 priority. And why am I doing that? I'm going to do that so that my clock leader is the core. It's not going to be that that Dante wall plate. Why I don't want it to be the Dante wall plate is because that Dante wall plate maybe is at the end of a coffee shop counter, and it can get easily damaged. It can, stuff spilled on it, maybe a chair bump into it, whatever the case may be. It's just kind of out there in the open. And so we want our clock leader to be something that's more contained, more controlled. So we're going to modify our PTP priority on one of our cores to less than 127, preferably 100 or less, so that core is now the clock leader. So even if that UND6IO gets damaged, we're still not going to have any upset in the digital audio that's going throughout the entire system. It will, however, disrupt any audio coming from that UNDX4I, because we still have to use that 6IOBT as a boundary clock between PTP v2 and PTV v1. If we don't want to do that, then we use our friend Software Dante. As Angela said, Software Dante has typically 1 to 2 milliseconds of latency is all. You can adjust the latency within the properties of the Dante or Software Dante block down to 1 millisecond. And really the thing that's going to impact that more than it being Software Dante is if you have to make several hops across your network. And any network hops. And that's going to affect whether it's a Dante chipset or Dante over software. So either way. So when we utilize software-based Dante, all you got to do, we all love that phrase, is bring in that software-based Dante block into our designs. So once we drop that into our design, we don't have to connect anything to it. It just has to be in our design, and either the input block or the output block has to be somewhere in our schematic. We don't even have to wire anything to it. But once that block is on our schematic and part of our design, now our core is saying, whoa, 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 I've got software Dante, so I need to generate both PTP v1 and PTP v2. PTP v1 is going to handle those native Dante devices. PTP v2 is going to handle those AES67 and Q-LAN devices. Core is going to act as a boundary clock. The core is going to act as your primary clock leader. And if those two need to never cross paths, we still have some Core 510s in stock, just a few of them, and we still have some CDN64 cards in stock Again, just a few of those. If you really, 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 really need to separate your two clocks across different networks. So by using that software Dante block, now our core is our primary clock leader. Our core is the boundary clock. So it's going to act, it's going to speak natively to both that older device, that UNDX4i. It's going to speak natively to the newer device, the 6IOBT, and it's going to speak natively to any of our AES67 or Q-LAN devices such as QIOs. To further make sure, again, there's a lot of redundancy here. We're just trying to, really hammer home what's going on with these devices to really make sure that we've got a device that's going to act as the primary clock leader. Then we can set its PTP priority. So set that PTP priority, use a software Dante block, and now your core is the preferred clock leader as well as your boundary clock. All of these clocking requirements that are shown here in this slide, this is straight out of our help file. So our help file is extremely robust. We try not to have too many white papers on our support site. If it's worth noting and worth being able to do, then it gets incorporated into our help file. Software Dante's active. I've got a priority on my core of 100. So that all those Q-LAN devices where they're out of the box at 254 for their PTP, or excuse me, their priority 1, they're going to follow my my clock that I've designated as the leader. My Bluetooth wall plate's going to follow that because it's can either speak Dante or AES67, and my XLR wall plate that's got the older chipset is going to follow along as well. And all I had to do was add that software Dante component into my design. So let's look at some real world scenarios. Out of the box, you've done no configuring to your system. Your room contains a either a Shure or an Audio-Technica or a Sennheiser ceiling mic, a core, QIO, an amplifier. QIO, amp, and the cores, they're all talking AES67 all day long, all talking Q-LAN. That microphone that we've done no setup on natively speaks Dante. It natively has that Dante chip in it. And so it will, because it speaks both Dante and AES67, will become and elected as the clock leader, regardless of, what other devices we have in the system. If we have done no setup, because it natively has that chip, it's going to be the clock leader. Now, this has this as part of a portable system. I don't know who would use a ceiling mic in a portable system, but more power to them. Let's say that's in a theater system. Again, that gets turned on and off relatively often. We don't want it to mess up anything going on in the classrooms, in the conference rooms. So that microphone that's being elected as the leader might not be the best option. So that's where we could designate a core by changing its PTP priority 1, to 100 or less. And now that core that's on all the time, it's in a rack, it's not getting messed with, it's not getting turned on and off, it's not getting unplugged. That's going to be my leader. So we don't have any hiccups in audio whenever that theater system comes online. How does that work for redundant systems? Well, if you've got a redundant pair of cores, your clock leader will follow the active core, right? So you can leave things right out of the box, set it, for their defaults, and the cores, and again, this is just an AES67 / Q-LAN system. The cores will make that best master clock election to whichever one has the lower MAC address on the NIC. That one's going to be your clock leader. And they will all be happy just that way. But now we need to add in a wall plate into maybe a gift shop or something like that. Okay, well, because we've done no configuration on these devices, And because that UND6IOBT speaks Dante natively, because it's got the chipset, it's got the Ultimo X chipset, it's going to say, hey, I'm the new sheriff in town. I can speak Dante natively. I can speak AES67 natively. I'm going to run the show as far as clocking is concerned. All fine and good until somebody bumps into it with a chair and shatters it, and now the system has a hiccup while we have a new master clock being elected. So what we're going to do is we're going to set our PTP priority 1 on to 100 or less on our primary core for our redundant pair. It can be your primary core, it can be your secondary core. That way you don't have any hiccup during a failover. If it's set up properly on your secondary core, then you will notice absolutely no audio dropouts, video dropouts, control dropouts at all when going from a primary to a secondary core. So our campus system here, and you're going to get tired of me saying this. Our campus system here, this is a university building. We got 3 classrooms, we got our building PA system, we got an auditorium, and within that auditorium is a little Bluetooth, or excuse me, Dante device that gets plugged in and unplugged and put in a cart and put away, and maybe it gets used, maybe it doesn't. Well, we've done the unthinkable. We've not set up any P2P priorities for our system. And so because we've not set up any PTP priorities for our system, that means that every time that little Dante bugger gets plugged in, it's going to cause that best master clock algorithm to go through. And because it natively has Dante and AES67 on board, has the chipset, it's going to get elected as the clock leader. And so all of our audio in our classrooms, our auditorium, our building PA system, that's all going to blink out of existence for about a second and a half while that master clock algorithm happens and everybody resyncs to follow the clock on that little Bluetooth device, that Bluetooth Dante device, that Aterotech, RDL, Q-SYS, doesn't really matter. So in order to prevent that from happening, we've got a couple options here. We could set different domains for each one of these sections. So we could put all of our classrooms that don't have any Dante devices. We, by all means, can change their domains. We can leave the domain 0 as the default in the auditorium. We can change our PTP priority 1 on one of these cores to make it the master, or the primary clock, I should say. So we've got a couple different options. If we do this where we create a new domain for each one of our classrooms, classroom 1, classroom 2, classroom 3, as well as our building PA system and our auditorium, if we do that, how can we send audio from our PA system out to each one of the classrooms? Well, we use our WAN streamer for that, because that's grabbing an RTP SP stream, and we're pushing that out onto the network. So that real-time stream doesn't adhere to any of those protocols, right? Any of the timing protocols. It's not concerned with that timing protocol. It's like when you're watching a YouTube video, your computer isn't syncing up to that live feed from a YouTube video. It's just saying, okay, here's this stream, you're going to send it to me. If I get that stream at the exact same time as the computer next to me, doesn't really matter. I'm going to get that full stream. And so the beauty of that is that Classroom 1 and Classroom 2, they'll still get the announcements coming from the building PA system. But even if that Classroom 1 announcement is a quarter second ahead of or behind Classroom 102's, it doesn't really matter, because it's not one big area where we're hearing all those audio sources coming through, as long as the message makes its way through the system. And so that's where we can separate these guys, have individual domains for each classroom, have a domain for the building PA system, have a domain for the auditorium, and use WAN streaming for those PA announcements from that building PA system out to our ancillary systems. So to recap, PTP v1, old school Dante. PTP v2, newish school. Q-LAN and AES67. The two don't talk. You need to be able to translate PTP v2 to PTP v1. How do you know if you need to translate? Well, open up Dante controller, and if your device will only operate in Dante mode, that's how you know that you only can use PTP v1. If it operates in AES67 mode, then you know it will adhere to PTP version 2 as long as you're operating it in AES67 mode. We can use those domains to break up clocking within a subnet, kind of like we looked at with the classroom scenario in the auditoriums. We can influence that clock election by changing our PTP priority on our core. Again, 100 or less will make it the PTP master clock for all your devices. So they're going to make that, any device that needs digital audio is going to make that announcement on the network. They're just going to say, hey, I'm here. I need digital audio. Who do I follow? If we set a PTP priority, it's that's already announced. It says, okay, I follow core number 1. And by me following that core number 1, there's no disruption in audio. If we leave everything to its own devices and we don't set up anything, as soon as that new device comes online, makes the announcement, hey, I need digital audio. All the other devices on that network respond in kind. They're like, well, we do digital audio. Great. Let's have an election. We're going to elect who's going to be the clock leader. And once that election occurs, it might change who the clock leader was from its previous leader, which causes that audio disruption. Ways that we can get around that is with PTP priority and by incorporating software-based Dante in our system. Again, 1 millisecond, sub 2 milliseconds latency latency if you're not changing the latency within your system design. Your software-based Dante doesn't even have to be connected to anything. That block just needs to be drug out into your schematic so that the system knows that it's there, knows that you need to establish that clocking. Wow. Questions, concerns? If do you want me to go back on any slides that were maybe unclear, anything like that? Anything in the chat?
Maybe if you could talk a little bit about redundant cores and which one you want to be the clock leader in a redundant situation.
Sure.
I don't.
So the when you've got 2 cores that you're going to use in a redundant situation, one thing that is it's not necessarily a best practice, but it's just kind of good to do, is get both your cores on the network. And identify which one numerically has the lower MAC address on its network interface that's being used for Dante audio and Q-LAN and AES67. With that, you can then say, all right, well, if I've got a failover and I'm not setting up any PTP priorities, I want that device that's going to have the lower MAC address to always be my clock leader. And so that can be your secondary or your failover core. Because that best master clock algorithm is going to go through, it's going to make that election, and it's going to say, hey, this core that's in redundant mode is your secondary, your failover core. That's got the lower MAC address. That's the one we should be adhering to for our timing. So then that failover happens. The primary core goes offline. We're now on the secondary. There's no disruption in audio because we've utilized the MAC address information and that BMCA to our advantage. If we are setting a priority and saying, okay, I'm not going to look at the MAC addresses on this, it's going to kind of work the same way, where we are setting the priority of our system then to 100. And again, choosing the device that is going to have the lower of the 2 MAC addresses to be the redundant core. Angela, have you done it any differently out there? That's the way that I've had success with it myself.
How I do it. Absolutely.
Okay.
One other question, how does the QoS preset factor into the PTP settings?
Excellent. So the way the QoS preset factors in the PTP settings is that you've got three different options within the dropdown in Q-SYS Designer, either Q-SYS, Audinate, or Custom. So Q-SYS is going to prioritize timing on, I think, 46, uh, and your digital video, and then your digital audio. So on the three levels of quality of service. Audinate prefers timing to be on a different number. I think it's 56 on that, 56, 46, and 34 or 36. One of those two. It's in our help file. And all it's doing there is saying, okay, Audinate devices, they, by the IEEE standard, prefer to have this DSCP value as the clock value, and digital audio to follow this DSCP value, and digital video to follow this third DSCP value. And so that's all that we're doing there, is changing which we're adhering to, whether it's going to be just Q-LAN or whether it's going to be AES Audinate. Anytime you use Dante in your system or AES67 in your system, use the Audinate from the drop-down menu in the preferred quality of service. And then just make sure that your network switch is set up appropriately for that quality of service, whether you're using one of our rebranded Netgear switches or you're configuring that switch yourself. Just double check your quality of service. Make sure that that those numbers all jive. Why we have a custom on there is we've run into phone systems. Maybe sometimes we get put on that VoIP VLAN. AV devices might get put on a VoIP VLAN. If we're on the VoIP VLAN and we're having some issues with QoS, then we would need to adhere to that VoIP VLAN's QoS, because VoIP also uses precision timing protocol. And so because we're trying to ride on that same network, we would have to adhere to its quality of service values. Clear as mud?
All right. Last question. Well, not last question, but another question. Is there a way to have a core lock to word clock or 2110 clock and still be a leader to its local PTP devices?
Yes, you can sync. This only works on cores that have a GPIO, general purpose IO, actually on the core. So if you have a GPIO actually on the core, then you can sync to word clock. And if you have another clock generator on your network, then a lot of times those clock generators will also generate PTP v2 network clocking. We don't necessarily have a list of approved devices, but if you need a hand picking out one of those devices, by all means, reach out to one of your Q-SYS applications engineers and we can assist. Can you cover the PTP config on the Q-SYS NS Netgear switches? Angela, you would like to answer that question live, huh?
I thought you wanted to answer it live.
Okay, so with the Q-SYS, if you order the switches from Q-SYS, out of the box, they're ready to go. You don't have to do a thing to them. It's not a custom firmware. It's a custom setup on the unit. So, just like if you're creating a custom setup and you export that to a XML or JSON file, it's very similar to that. So with the AV line of switches from Netgear, you've got those profiles that are already set up for, audio with Q-SYS, video with Q-SYS, etc. If that switch is purchased directly from Q-SYS, it's good to go out of the box. It's good to go as far as electing its IGMP querier as well, if you're putting them in a larger network. For the NS, the M4250 series switches from Netgear, and any other switch for that matter, that you're going to be setting up for Q-LAN traffic, AES67 traffic, etc. We do have a pretty comprehensive bit of documentation on our help file. The main thing is adhering to that quality of service. Our number one assist on networking when we get calls is making sure quality of service is set up correctly. And quality of service across the VLAN that's specific for AV, quality of service for the network switch, however you guys want to configure that. But making sure that those QoS standards, which are listed in our support files, our help files, are adhered to. The packet size, not adhering to jumbo packets, an MTU of 1500 or less, is adhered to. All clearly stated in the help file. But if you need help beyond that, absolutely reach out to your local AET resource or Q-SYS support. And if we will help wherever we can. Just going to go ahead and stop the share. We are almost out of time for our meeting today. Our webinar. Thank you, everybody who attended. Wow, 43 participants on today's webinar. I really appreciate that, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy days. We know it's not cheap to dedicate an hour to a Q-SYS webinar, and we really appreciate it. Again, my name is Jason Francois. I handle Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and the Dakotas. We've got Sam Lorenz. And Sam, where do you handle again?
Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri.
Nice. And Angela works with our distributor end, and she is located where?
I am outside of Seattle.
Outside of Seattle. Hopefully not outside of Seattle, but in a nice cozy building somewhere. So thank you, everybody who has joined today. We really appreciate it. The recording will be pushed out to you guys probably in the next couple days after it goes through our extremely prolific editing process, where we pretty much just put a title on it. And we will guys see you on the next webinar. Thank you, everyone.